Hey everyone, welcome to the Sphere Drones YellowScan webinar. I just wanted to make sure that our audio is working okay. I've just sent a chat message out to everyone. If you could just reply in the chat window to make sure that you can hear us okay. Perfect, thanks for that, Anthony. So we'll just wait a few more minutes for some more people to join us, and then we'll be with you shortly. Hey everyone, we're just waiting for a few more people to join us and then we'll get started. All right, everyone, thank you for joining us today. I just wanted to do one last check to make sure that everyone can hear us okay. So if someone could just confirm, Anthony, perhaps if you could jump in and confirm that you can hear us again. Beautiful. Wonderful, thank you. All righty, so thanks everyone for joining us. The intention of today's webinar is obviously to run through the YellowScan products that we've recently signed on as the distributor for here in Australia. So for those of you who aren't aware, we just got back a couple of weeks ago from a tour around Australia showing everyone the YellowScan lineup. So we had Thibaut join us from France, and Teresa from Melbourne came around the country with us. So I guess in terms of the quick agenda overview here, so we're going to do a quick introduction and then a bit of a presentation on Sphere Drones, who we are and what we're getting up to, and then dive into the YellowScan product introduction and the workflow, and then have some Q&A at the end. So if you don't mind asking questions throughout the webinar, you're welcome to submit questions through the chat portal there, and then we'll address all the questions at the end if that's okay. And there will be some time for those technical questions. And thank you again to Thibaut for joining us bright and early from France. So if you give us 1 second, we'll just switch over to the next slide here. So I'll introduce Paris first. So Paris here is our Chief Executive Officer at Sphere Drones. I'll hand over to him and he can do a quick little intro on himself.
Hey guys, how are you? My name is Paris, as Elliot has presented. I think I may have met a couple of you on the road as part of the tour, but fundamentally CEO, founder of Sphere Drones, and supported by a fantastic team and a bunch of fantastic vendors, including YellowScan. And the gentleman you just heard for was Elliot, our CRP and head of flight operations. You'll hear a little bit later on from Teresa, who looks after the BD business development aspect here in the APAC region, and Thibaut, applications engineer from YellowScan, who more than recently actually was the first time he came down south of the equator and visited beautiful Australia. So we welcomed Thibaut with open arms and showed him the best part of what our country had to offer. So thanks again, Thibaut and Teresa, for joining us today. I don't know if you want to give a little bit more of an introduction as to who you are and a little bit more there.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thanks, Paris and Elliot for Sphere Drones and Sphere Drones for organizing this webinar. And I guess I met some of you, or some of you may already met me previously during the demo days and some other events. I look at, as Paris mentioned, I'm in charge of the Asia Pacific region for all the YellowScan product portfolios. And pretty much now here in Australia, Sphere Drones is going to take care of all the Australia market. And hand over to Thibaut. Thibaut, would you like to say a few words?
Yeah, thank you, Teresa. Hey, everyone. My name is Thibaut Capra. So as introduced before by Alec and Paris, I'm an application engineer at YellowScan. I mostly take care of any of the support issues you might have or technical questions you might have before purchasing a system. I'm Very glad to join Sphere Drones today, even though the sun is not even out on my side of the planet. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks again for that, Thibaut. I really appreciate you getting up so early to jump on the call with us and be available as the LiDAR wizard for the Australian people. So thanks again. So if I can just go down to my window here, bear with me for 1 sec. So just jumping off the webinar here, we just want to have a quick poll and see what sort of aircraft everyone is running. So if you could just click the answer on your screen in the poll that's coming up, that'd be fantastic. So obviously the reason for trying to get a gauge on this is because the YellowScan products, they have got a few of the units that are very seamlessly integrated with the Matrice 300 product. So it's a really nice and streamlined workflow that's quite effective, and obviously a lot of people who are running Matrice 300s already will be looking for that compatibility with the YellowScan product. So just trying to gauge that one. So thanks for all your responses there, everyone. I'll hand over to Paris now, and he can do a quick little introduction for you on who we are and what we've been up to.
So thanks, El. So as some of you heard earlier, my name's Paris. I'm CEO and founder of Sphere Drones, but talk a little bit more about our background. Family business has been set up since 1954, and in foundation, our business is influenced on the background of a family-run technology range of businesses, we could say. And for us as an organisation, we aspire to enable individuals and enterprise and businesses to realise the potential of roving technologies. And fundamentally, which is like, if we have a look at the complete operational framework, everything from the drone, the software you're using, the payloads you're using, but all the way through to how best you optimize and run these operations through your workflows and your day-to-day. And the real big pillar of who we are and what we're doing is we're starting to associate ourselves with organizations like YellowScan, which we deem the best in class when it comes to an operational framework. In essence, we've got 10 years of trading history, where in 2012 we founded the business. And over the course of our time, we've had some outstanding milestones come through and take part in our journey. In late last year, we onboarded landborne and subsea environments in amongst our organisation, and earlier this year we acquired Rise Above, being an e-commerce platform business. But all in all, our objective is for our business to support your operation on end to end. Our vision, as I said, enable and inspire individuals and organisations to realise their roving technology potential, and really want to be essential to enabling your workflows and enabling your businesses with products and services that are at the utmost best in class. For us, we recognise those and really bring those together. And what we've done today with the YellowScan solution is be able to service a product and bring a product forward that's applicable to many industries. And for us, we're very much industry agnostic. Being in an industry agnostic business really pulls out the value of us being able to learn from the best, be the best, and really support the best. Our team really look to drive, the ultimate ROI for you as organisations, and we take our learnings from these industries to be able to really bring this through in amongst our offering. In terms of where we are and where we're located, our team's spread across the country. So we've got a head office here in Sydney, where Elliot and I are today. We've got some team members over in Perth in WA, but then we've also got representation and team members that are working from home in Brisbane and Melbourne in particular. But look, with the nature of remote working and working from home and being able to connect with team, we're able to connect with the entire Australia-wide environment. Over the course of our existence, we've very much worked with, and sorry for all those who did experience this presentation earlier on in our face-to-faces, but for us, we work with industry leaders in amongst those industries that we mentioned earlier. So Rio Tinto, Fortescue, Surf Lifesaving. But then, a lot of our clients, being a customer-centric business, are also supported by our partners. Very much so, like we're here positioned with YellowScan, Teresa and Thibaut. We bring these solutions, and we are very much a conduit for these organisations and manufacturers in the international market, but also localising how do we get this technology into an Australian operational framework? And we do have that localized experience where we do bring that expertise to market. In terms of our offering, you may be aware of it, but just to refresh your minds, we're really trying to break the stigma as to, hey, Sphere Drones is just a retailer. We're not just a retailer. For us, we offer more than retail. We can assist with maintenance and repairs, build out custom and bespoke solutions. We've got a use case realization team which really uncovers the ins and outs of a potential workflow opportunity and improvement in your opportunity in your workflow, sorry, and build that out as to what are the systems, what are the payloads, what are the accessories that are going to pull this all together to really make the most of how we optimize your day-to-day. We can assist with compliance advisory, training, but then also come onto site and operate with you in a compliant state. For us as an organisation, our REOC number 1114 is something that I know is very, very pivotal to coming out in the field and operating in a compliant state. But us as an end-to-end service offering, we've actually extended further than just these, you could call it services. We've built out a product called Cura, which manages your organisation's compliance and fleet management with regards to your roving technologies, but then also delivers business insight. Now, being vertically integrated with Sphere Drones is actually where the power of a compliance tool sits. It means that we're in tune with your day-to-day operations and we're in tune with how your team members are utilising these systems and tools. An additional product that we do have is Nero, to customized water sampling system that gets mounted underneath, as an example, Matrice 300, similar to your YellowScan Mapper series. But really, it's all about the payloads that are uncovering what and how solutions are being used, and no doubt you hear a little bit more about it. Earlier on in our presentations to you all whilst we're there on site, we actually went into the details of what the industry looks like shifting on into 2030 and beyond. But right now in Australia, we're seeing there's approximately 33,000 drones. Now, as you can see there with the red line, it's heading in an upward trajectory where by 2030, there's going to be approximately 110,000 drones. Now, this YellowScan LiDAR solution is something that's going to be utilized in and amongst your agricultural services, your construction, your mining and resources. And if you actually see where the industry is heading, these type of solutions are really uncovering the use cases and the applications within those industries. But for me, I'm so passionate about what the industry looks like and being able to present this data to you that slowly as time progresses, there's going to be more that I try to expose to market. At the end of the day, we sit very much alongside manufacturers, vendors, but then also our customers. So we're very, very, very well exposed to what the nature of the market is presenting. For us, at the end of the day, there's 2,498 organisations that have licenses to operate commercially, and for us, we work alongside 47% of those. So as we tie closely with this industry, as we learn more and more, the more and more these types of solutions like the YellowScan scanner, like the solutions that we offer, really allow organisations to utilize the drones in the best way possible, so that come 2030, we're now in an operational environment where everything's turnkey, everything's a lot easier, there's no friction in that process, and really that's where the YellowScan product states. So without further ado, we're going to ask one question here before we jump into it, and I'll hand over to Tibor and Elliot. But just from the audience that we have here today, how many of you own a LiDAR solution? That's this kind of gauge us an interest as to whether or not, you know, and how to best tailor this conversation for you. But I'll just let you guys handle this web poll for a bit longer. We're about 43% of all people that have attended that are currently in attendance. We'll just wait for a couple more to submit the poll question there in the tab view. And then we'll hand over to Elliot and Tibor to answer and ask a few more questions. Wait for a couple more people. Thank you, guys. And the last question, I'll probably hand this one over to Elliot to preface, but I'll hand that one over to Elliot.
So essentially, from our side, one thing that we're really interested in understanding is whether there's a particular aspect of LiDAR work that's particularly important for you as a consumer. So aside from the obvious price question mark, it's always good for us to understand if there's a particular focus for you when you're reviewing a LiDAR a LiDAR unit. I guess the benefit, which we'll kind of explore a little bit more throughout the webinar, is the specifics of the YellowScan product by comparison to some of the other units that are available on the market. But yeah, it's always good to just understand if there is a key decision-making point. We're aware that there might be an element of combination required for this one, but yeah. So I guess jumping into the YellowScan side of things, I think the main thing to kind of understand with the YellowScan mission is that their goal is to provide the most integrated and easy to use UAV LiDAR solutions for survey and mapping applications. So there's been a lot of time and effort in making sure that their units are as easy to use as possible. And I think Thibaut summed it up as well as one can when he was here in Australia. He said that they used to have a 2-button press mentality to try and keep it simple, and then they figured that was a little bit much, so they transitioned from that 2-button press to a 1-button press mentality. And I think that pretty much sums up the YellowScan approach to working with LiDAR. So in terms of the YellowScan product itself, they've actually just celebrated their 10th anniversary. So congratulations, I guess, to YellowScan for knocking out 10 years of LiDAR. But so they recently just had a 10-year celebration in Montpellier in France, where they had a number of distributors, etc., make the journey over to I think it's the south of France, isn't it, Thibaut? So that was reviewing all the different factors that kind of play into the YellowScan ecosystem, including different softwares, different applications, all the different hardware, etc., that they have on offer. And you can see on the top right-hand corner at the moment, that's an image of the brand new Voyager that they've just released as well. So they released a VUX 120 based system that's designed to go underneath a UAV or a piloted aircraft. But that thing only weighs 3.5 kilos, and it's their new kind of gold standard, I suppose. So you can see here, this is a quick little sneak peek on the YellowScan Voyager. So where the focus of this webinar today is more to focus on the 3 units that we've just done a tour around the country with. If anyone has any specific questions around specific models, then we welcome those questions. But just a quick tidbit on the Voyager. So this is the latest release from YellowScan. You can see that it's got that VUX 120 core inside it, and then you've got the options of an AP plus 30 air or an AP plus 50 air, which gives it that insane precision and accuracy. So 0.5 centimeter precision and 1 centimeter accuracy. I believe the maximum operating height of this unit is around 450 meters or something like that, which is pretty insane. And then up to 15 returns, which is just nuts. We're quite used to seeing three or five return systems, but obviously this just takes it to that next level. So on the right-hand side, you can see that's an Ace Core NOAA, the Ace Core heavy lift option. So that's been flown with that, which is pretty impressive. So essentially, we all know that LiDAR units are essentially tools in your tool belt. And so that's something where YellowScan have just designed their systems to make that as easy as possible while maintaining the best accuracy and precision that they can. So the lineup that you see on the screen at the moment shows the main units in the YellowScan lineup. So we've got the Mapper Plus, the Mapper there, which is the entry-level unit. All of these units are relatively product agnostic as well, so you can kind of bolt them underneath any aircraft or vehicle that's compatible with them. The Mapper has a camera module available, as does all of the units that we've got pictured on the screen here are compatible with camera modules. But with the Mapper, the Mapper Plus, and the Surveyor Ultra, you can use them underneath the Matrice 300 with a camera module as well for concurrent capture of LiDAR and imagery data. So that's always a nice plus. The Mapper Plus there is the unit that we've recently picked up as our demonstration unit here in Australia. It's an amazing little unit. It's got that perfect balance, I think, of precision, accuracy, and the price point is just right. The Surveyor Ultra, if you can stretch your budget a little bit, I do always recommend that there are some benefits to stepping up to the Surveyor Ultra with that 360-degree field of view. It's also got 32 lasers rather than the one laser that you see in most of the other systems. And so that gives the unit some really good vegetation penetration, as well as the ability to be mounted into the fly and drive system. It makes it really flexible. We've got the VX15 series and the VX20 series, which use the Regal Minivux lineup. So that's there's two different options there, and then each of those, the VX15 and VX20, both have a few different units within their lineup to provide you that flexibility in the choices, I suppose. And then the Explorer there is YellowScan's own LiDAR unit that they've designed. So they've built that with the European consortium, but that's designed to be operated. It can go onto the Matrice 300, or it can be bolted onto a piloted aircraft like a helicopter or a plane, and flown it up to 250, 300 meters, and it has a 5 returns. So that's quite a neat little system to be able to switch between a piloted aircraft and a M300 is pretty impressive. And then the Voyager is that new unit that I've just mentioned, of course, on the previous slide. So essentially with the YellowScan system, the reason that one would consider a YellowScan unit is that they're lightweight, they're precise and accurate, they're fully integrated with embedded batteries, they've got an easy workflow, they're compact, and they're adaptable to any UAV platform, and then some piloted platforms and even ground-based vehicles as well. So you can see here's a few of the different options that you can mount that the YellowScan units have been mounted under. So there's some capable aircraft in this mix, including a piloted aircraft in the bottom right-hand corner there. So just a quick reminder here on the one of the benefits of the YellowScan product. So there are some systems on the market that are quite accurate but not very precise, or that are precise but not very accurate. And I guess it's always good to kind of just review the concepts of accuracy versus precision, and how they kind of interrelate. And so the benefit of the YellowScan system is that they're both precise and accurate, which is quite important from a data perspective. So in terms of the demonstration tour, so we just got back from the trip around the country where we were demonstrating the Mapper Plus, the Surveyor Ultra, and the Explorer. So all of these units were flown under our Matrice 300. We'll review some data at the end of the session, but essentially these are the 3 different units that we'll be focusing on today. Again, if you have any specific questions about any of the other units in the YellowScan lineup, we'd be more than welcome to receive those questions from you. But at a brief overview, you can see here on the left-hand side, we've got the Mapper Plus. Not pictured is the camera module, but you can capture imagery, RGB imagery, or multispectral imagery at the same time if you like. You can see you're looking at that 2.5 centimeter precision and 3 centimeter accuracy. The Mapper Plus does have a slightly narrower field of view than some of the other units, at that 70.4 degree field of view. Essentially, that equates to a roughly 140 meter field of view when you're at 100 meters. And then you can see that it's a 3 return system with the APX15 there as well. So the Surveyor Ultra again has that 3 return system, but one of the big differences is that the unit is using 32 lasers rather than just a single laser, which does give it that really good penetration over some of the other systems that are available. So it does have a 360 degree field of view, which is pretty neat. So you can do facade scanning or high wall scanning, whatever it is. And it's just a matter of selecting the data that you want to capture in post. So rather than only capturing, say, a 70 degree field of view and then not being able to change that, after it captures everything, and then you can change what you actually keep off the back of it, if that makes sense. And then the Explorer here on the right-hand side is kind of a bit of a beastie unit. So that's designed to be operated up a little bit higher, but you've still got that 2.6 centimeter precision and 2.2 centimeter accuracy. So the benefit of the Explorer is that it does have that really good penetration of vegetation as well. So you'll be able to make out a little bit more detail in the vegetation layers rather than getting kind of a top, middle, and bottom. You do have that ability to kind of make out a little bit more detail throughout the base of it. You can see there as well, it also has an APX20, which gives it that improvement in the data quality there as well. So in terms of the Map Plus, just a quick recap here, you've got a 140 meter swath at 100 meters, and it's designed to be flown at 5 to 30 meters per second. So of course, the faster you fly, the fewer points that you'll capture. So it's just a balancing act in terms of getting that point density that's appropriate for your project. The data sets that we'll show you a little bit later have all been captured at the same height, just to get a like-for-like comparison. So we flew all the data that you'll see later in the presentation at about 70 meters above ground level, above takeoff height, sorry, and we flew at about 8 meters a second just to get that kind of like-for-like comparison. So the Surveyor Ultra here, designed to be flown slightly lower for best results, but essentially you can again fly it at 5 to 30 meters per second, but you can see there that the swath is quite wide by comparison because of that, really 360-degree field of view instead of a 70-degree nadir sort of style. The YellowScan Fly-in Drive is one that we also get quite a few questions on because there's obviously a benefit to being able to have one unit that can do multiple purposes. So you can see on the left-hand side there, you've got the chart for the point density if you're using the Surveyor Ultra version 2 for UAV LiDAR acquisition. And then on the right-hand side, you've got the car LiDAR acquisition as well. So it's pretty neat to just be able to take the unit off your Matrice 300 and plug it into your car and then go and do the same sort of data capture, which is pretty neat. So live station. So one of the neat things about the YellowScan product is that there is the option of being able to utilize a live view capability. So if it's important for you to see that real-time assessment of your point cloud and make sure that your trajectory is all good, etc., it's a pretty neat little functionality. And you've got the ability to kind of replay your mission as well, which is a pretty cool little functionality. So that's quite unique to the YellowScan product in the grand scheme of things. It's something that, of course, we've seen come into play with the likes of the DJI L1, but of course the YellowScan unit does have that capability of capturing very high accuracy and very precise data as well. In terms of the mission parameters for the YellowScan Explorer, so there's a few different options here. I was kind of torn about which ones I should present, but essentially I've just gone with the 500 kilohertz option there to kind of represent what you'd be doing with a Matrice 300 if you wanted that really good penetration and really dense point cloud. But if anyone's interested in seeing a spec sheet off the back of the webinar, just let us know. We'd be more than happy to share that with you off the back of the call. But yeah, it's a very capable unit, and it was quite nice to work with on the Matrice 300 as well. So it straddles it's just underneath the maximum takeoff weight of the Matrice 300 at 2.6 kilos. So shout out to YellowScan for putting together an amazing, capable unit that's compatible with Matrice 300. So in terms of the YellowScan workflow, you can see here this is a representation of the basic workflow for the YellowScan data capture. So you can see you've got your LiDAR system in the center of the screen here on the left that shows you've got your actual drone with your LiDAR unit. If you're using a camera module and or live station, then those are optional extras that you can kind of bolt on to your system. And you can see that you've got live station at the top there that allows you to have that overview while the drone's in flight, or your fly-in drive system is on the roof of your vehicle. So when you're doing your LiDAR capture, you've got a few different files inside your unit. So you've got the RXP, PUC, FRE, or LVX. That's the actual raw data out of the core of the LiDAR unit. So whether that's the VUX 120 or the HESI scanner that they now feature in their Surveyor Ultra version 2. You've got the APX file there, which is your APX 15 or APX 20, etc., and then the TO4 there, which is your GNSS file. And you combine those three files with your GNSS base station to essentially create your output via Cloud Station and POSPAC. So we'll touch on that in just a moment, but one of the benefits of the YellowScan product is that it does use the Trimble APX 15 as their standard inertial measurement, IMU, I should say. And so that's kind of like a gold standard, I suppose, within the industry. It's quite widely recognized as being a very capable unit. So the Trimble APX15 requires that you use POSPAC to process your trajectories, and that's what gives you essentially a PPK processed data to get that precise, accurate data. So then once you're finished in POSPAC, you're back into that cloud station workflow where you've got that one button press mentality. And I've been advised, a little birdie told me that the future state will see POSPAC taken care of inside the cloud station ecosystem. So that'll be a very nice inclusion when that comes online. But that's not an official thing yet. So sorry if that was a bit of a leak. I'm sorry, Tivo. But so then once you've done your point cloud generation, you can then further treat the data in Cloud Station if you want. So you can see that there's a strip adjustment module there to really improve your data quality. And that's a big point of differentiation, I think, for the YellowScan product, is that you do have that precise and accurate data. You've got the terrain module there, which allows you to classify the point cloud, and that allows you to create a DTM, a DSM, or a digital height model as well. And so the terrain module does essentially, it classifies your data into ground and not ground at the moment, and I expect that we'll see future filters being introduced as well. But if it is something where you wanted to really analyze and do a deep dive on your data, then there's some other fantastic tools out there that will allow you to do some of those things. The colorization module is a really neat function of the Cloud Station software that basically allows you with a few clicks to colorize your point cloud, either from the images that you've captured with your YellowScan system or with ortho photos. And then I guess in terms of the future state, we'll also potentially see some further improvements to the software as well. So jumping into the actual unit itself, so there's an IMU initialization that you do at the beginning and end of your flight, which is what contributes to the data being so good from the YellowScan unit. So in this instance, you can see on the right-hand side here, I've got the maneuver on the right-hand side there. So it's a forwards, backwards, forwards, and then a U-turn. So you do that, and then you jump back into your mission in your Matrice 300 or whatever aircraft you're using, and then at the end of your mission, you do that maneuver again and come back in and land. So it's a pretty easy workflow that they've designed there. So once you've captured your data, you've got the ability to go back and post-process it, like I said before. So you collect your data, you do your trajectory correction inside POSPAC UAV or MMS if you're using a fly and drive system, and then you extract your point cloud in Cloud Station. So one thing I just wanted to touch on as well is that the Cloud Station software is a desktop-based software, so it's not a cloud-based solution. The Cloud Station refers to the fact that they're working with point clouds, of course, as the YellowScan units and LiDAR data. So in terms of the workflow, obviously one thing that we went through in our demonstration tour is running people through the workflow in field. So obviously it's not quite as easy to do that while you're in the office. But you can see here, essentially, you do all your standard sort of area of interest review. So making sure that the area that you're going to be flying is all safe and everything. Making sure that you're aware of what sort of data you're capturing, and if you're capturing data over like a lake, for example, making sure that you've got enough area on the outside of that so that you get some good data around that. And then making sure that your base station is set up within 10 kilometers. So with the YellowScan systems, they do require a base station that creates a Rhinex file. So it is something where you can potentially use the cores network, for example, if you want, but it's ideal to have a base station within 10 kilometers. The further you go outside that 10 kilometers, the more you'll see that dilution of precision, of course. From a flight planning perspective, we've obviously demonstrated the YellowScan unit with the Matrice 300, which has been a dream. It doesn't really matter which platform or flight planning software you use, as long as you're kind of mindful of the overlaps that you're setting. So obviously with with photogrammetry, typically you'd be looking for at least 70% forward lap and side lap. So if you're flying with the YellowScan unit with a camera attached, if you're looking to be able to create photogrammetry photogrammetric models from the data that you're capturing as well, then you'll be kind of restricted to flying to the overlaps for photogrammetry. But if you did want to fly with just LiDAR and camera for colorization, then you can reduce your overlap slightly to potentially say 60% side lap. And best case scenario, if you were flying in a really optimal environment, you could potentially fly with as low as 30% side lap if you weren't concerned about the colorization of your point cloud, as long as you didn't have any very tall obstacles inside your area of interest. If that makes sense, you might get some shadowing. But so as long as you kind of factor in your waypoint programming and anticipate a little bit extra on the edges to make sure that you capture your area properly, then you'll be a happy chap or chapette. So here it's obviously got the retrieving the data from the LiDAR unit. So in all the YellowScan units, they do have that that USB drive to store the data, and that has your 3 files from the LiDAR unit. If you're using a camera, then you can retrieve the camera, the images from your camera, whether that's a Mica Sense or the Sony cameras that the YellowScan systems use. And then you take your base station file from your cores network or from your base station. Otherwise, there are some other options if you don't have access to a cores base station where you can potentially use the network RTK sort of thing. So in terms of the software, you can see here, this is the POSPAC screen. So on the right-hand side, this is where you're doing your trajectory correction. So you import your TO4 file and your RINEX file from your base station, and then you're essentially processing the trajectories on this in this software to export your SBET to allow you to process your data accurately in Cloud Station. If you are doing concurrent capture of images with your LiDAR data, then there is an extra step inside POSPAC to allow you to get that photo ID file to correctly create an ortho mosaic in third-party software, etc., to have nice and accurate PPK processed images. Back into the YellowScan native software. So the main piece of software here is called YellowScan Cloud Station, and there's a core module which is required for every LiDAR data that you capture. So this is what you would need as a very minimum to get to have the data processed and exported. So this allows you to export a .las or a .laz through only a few clicks, as you can see there. And we'll do a bit of a deep dive later when we actually get through the presentation. I'll actually share my screen and show you some of the data that we've captured. So you can manage your point clouds, customize your data, and then export your LAS files. You've then also got 3 different modules that you can add to your Cloud Station software. So there's the strip adjustment, which is one of the big selling points, I think, of the YellowScan software, in that it gives you, or the YellowScan offering, I should say, in that it gives you that really precise and accurate data set. So I always recommend strip adjustment for every client. The terrain module is a good option to consider. It gives you the ability to generate your DTM in a few clicks, and it's a really neat classification functionality. So I always recommend that one, but I am aware that some people may have third-party tools that they use to classify their data, so they might prefer to do it in there. And then the colorization module is another neat little functionality that allows you to, with very little effort, have a colorized point cloud, which is great for contextualization of the data. So in terms of your point cloud extraction, you've got some neat little features here. So you can see here that you've got a few of the different flight lines that it's automatically detected, and then you can tell the system whether you want to increase or decrease the length of them, etc., etc. But yeah, it's a really neat little functionality. And then you can see here that there's just a few different fields that you can fill out, and you can see there the angle range is where you can select what field of view you'd like to use for the data that you've collected, if that makes sense. Strip adjustment. So you can see here there's only 2 functions, only 2 fields to select within the strip adjustment functionality. So they've really made that as easy as possible. They've also given you the ability to bring in your GCPs into this step of the workflow as well. The terrain module, you can see here on the right-hand side, it's classified all the trees and shrubbery, etc., as non-ground, and then it's got the ability to pair that back. So you'll see that in a moment. The colorization module, again, it's a very streamlined workflow here. So there's a few different options which you can go through and select to get a good quality data set out of CloudStation software. And then this is the export page here. So you've got the option of exporting as DSM, DTM, DHM, or as your LAS files, etc. And you can kind of configure which options you want to export as. And so this is my little prompt for the software demonstration. So give me 1 second while I convert over. So on the screen here at the moment, you can see that we've got 3 data sets open here at the moment in the CloudStation software, and there's actually just been a very fresh release by YellowScan of the latest version of CloudStation that allows you to do batch processing, which I'll touch on in a bit, but that's a really neat functionality that they've just released, which allows you to process up to, I think it's 90 or 95 data sets is I think that was the maximum that YellowScan has tested in, 90 to 95 flights or data captured in the one instance. So shout out to YellowScan for turning this software into a bit of a beast. So the data set that we have here at the moment is the YellowScan Mapper Plus data. So I'm just going to turn off my trajectory here. So you can see this is a colorized data set that I've put together in it. Essentially, I processed this data set while Thibaut was making his presentation during the YellowScan Roadshow. So it only took me about 20 minutes or so to have all of this data colorized and to have the point cloud generated, strip adjustment, etc., and the colorization of the point cloud. So, so this one here was captured at 70 meters, like I said. So you can see here we've captured 4 different flight lines, and it's quite easy to turn those flight lines on or off during the import stage. So this one I've already processed. I'm not going to do any processing on the actual call here because it probably will take a few minutes to process, and I don't want to have you all sitting there watching paint dry. But so the basic workflow is that you can essentially import, and bear with me for 1 second. So when you go to your YellowScan data set, so this is an example of our data sets that we captured for the demonstration tour. So you can see that we've got the project file here that we can open. And if you bear with me for 1 second, I'll just open the one from Melbourne, for example. So you can see here, you open your you open your YellowScan CloudStation file, and this is what you're greeted with. So you can see here you have your trajectory. You can tell it which strips you want to include or exclude. So for example, I can delete that blue strip there, and then I can click on the process button, and that'll just quickly go through and review and essentially create an overview of the LiDAR data. So you can actually do this one in field, which is a really neat functionality that you can make sure that your data quality is that you actually got some good usable data before you leave site. There's nothing worse than leaving site and realizing that you forgot to press save, or that you removed the memory card too soon, or something like that. So so you can see here it's pretty quickly going through and putting together that LiDAR data here. And if I wait for another second, it'll probably finish up in just a moment. So you can see it's finished doing its initial processing here, and when this yellow bar down the bottom here finishes processing, then we'll be able to view that LiDAR data. And you can see here, this is where I've done those forward, backwards, forwards, U-turn maneuvers, and then continued on with my flight. So you can see just how quickly that's done that initial processing. And then the next step here would be to do a strip adjustment. So again, that kind of workflow is literally just, you can tell it whether you want to use a robust or a precise adjustment for your strip adjustment, and you can incorporate the GCPs as you like. I am just going to go back here and turn off my trajectory for a moment, because you probably don't really care too much about the actual flight path that I've done. But then in the strip adjustment functionality here, you can then again click that one button, and it'll start doing the strip adjustment process here. And hopefully I don't crash my computer, because I've got too many Chrome tabs open at the moment. But while that's processing, we can see if we can have a look at this data here inside the Brisbane data set. So you can see this was quite a dense vegetation area. So like I said, we flew this one at 70 meters just so that we could compare the YellowScan Mapper Plus with the other units. But it's done a really good job, I think, of colorizing the point cloud and generating a nice, clean data set. So if I take the slice tool here, for example, I can show you from left to right. So this is the adjusted point cloud here. So if I just make this a little bit bigger because we're on the webinar, bear with me for 1 second. So you can see here it's a really nice, clean data set. There's no distortion of the different strips, etc. And that's the roof, for example, of the QUT building there. And then so that was the and it's a nice thin point cloud as well. So it's not like it's there's not a lot of noise or anything like that, which is pretty neat. So as I scroll through here as well, there was a set of power lines which you might be able to see. So it's quite impressive that the units captured those power lines at all. And if we see some of the other data sets here, so I'm just going to turn off that trajectory again. Now this data set that I'm showing you now is the Surveyor Ultra. So this is their more robust unit. So if I change the color here, so oops, sorry, don't mind me. Thibaut, I haven't figured out where the new function is to change the color scheme on the LiDAR. How do I change change to elevation model?
If you go back to the paint icon above the filter one, this one, and you go back to elevation on top.
Ah, thank you. Sorry about that, gang. Thanks for the help, Thibaut. No, always there to lend a hand. So you can see here, if I take that slice here again, we go left to right, again, you can see that the data from the Surveyor Ultra has a really good penetration of the vegetation. So if I scroll across to here, you can see we're getting some good vegetation data there. And if I go back to the Mapper Plus data here, you can see that we're getting some good data, but you really do have a bit of extra penetration here on the Surveyor Ultra version 2. And then if I scroll through here, you can also see we'll get to some power lines. Bear with me for a second. No, it's not going to do it for me in such a short notice. But and then I guess if I switch back across here again to the Explorer data set, so this one is where we'll really start to see a big jump in the data quality. So I'm just going to turn on my elevation model again because it makes me feel a little bit better. So if I turn on my slice tool here, again, you can see the cross section here, and this is where you'll see that those 5 returns really starting to come into their own, with some really nice tight data. And again, if I scroll through, we should see those power lines a little bit more clearly than the other data sets. But you can just see this pine tree here, for example. You can see all the different layers of the vegetation there. So really, really impressive unit. So while I've been busy gas bagging, you can see here that we've brought the strip adjustment has come through, and you can see that we've got a nice clean data set here. In terms of the terrain module, again, if I click on the classify here, that's going to classify in the background while I go back to my my cloud station example with the other data sets. And you can see here the swath on the Mapper Plus by comparison to the Surveyor Ultra and the Explorer. You can see that there's quite a big difference in terms of the actual footprint of the unit. So if I turn on the trajectory here, you can see I have included an extra data set up there. So I'll turn, an extra strip up the top here. But just to compare like for like, you can see that if I take a measurement from side to side, you can see that we're looking at about 300 meters with the Surveyor Ultra. If I do the measurement on the Mapper Plus, you can see we're looking at about 185 meters. And then the Explorer here, you can see this is really got a wide footprint, you know, and you can see that we've got about 323 meters-ish captured in the same sort of area. So very different units for very different purposes. But I'm just going to click on the classify function here because it looks like it's finishing the book. I've been too quick. Hopefully it hasn't overwritten it because I was too quick on that one. So what you can see here as well is, no, I think I might have overwritten my data. We'll see how we get on. Bear with me for 1 second, team. So I'm also mindful of time. I know that it's 7 minutes to 3, so we might jump over to some questions if that's okay with everyone. So I'm just going to jump across here to my my presentation here. So we've done a bit of a software demonstration, but does anyone have any questions about anything that we've reviewed in the presentation so far? We've got some very very intelligent people on the other end of the call here as well. Mr. Thibault is available. He's hoping for some nitty-gritty technical questions. But if anyone does have any questions that they wanted to jump into, I guess while we're waiting for some questions to come through, I can jump back into my my data review here. If anyone thinks of any questions off the back of the call as well, you can send them through to us via email, and we can review them after the fact and get back to you. We've had a question come in about whether you can use the H20 camera as the RGB. So you can use any orthophoto to colorize your point cloud. Essentially, inside the colorization module here, you've got the option of colorizing from the YellowScan photos, or you can select you know, from orthophoto, and then you can go through and you can select your third-party imagery. So say you wanted to go and fly it with you know, a P1, or if you wanted to go and maybe you had a Phantom 4 RTK data set that you wanted to use to colorize it, then yeah, you could certainly do that. Obviously, with the YellowScan units, there is the Mapper Plus, and the Surveyor Ultra all have the capability of getting an APS-C camera as native to the YellowScan unit. So that would generally be my recommendation. But if there is a specific reason that you needed or wanted to use a third-party camera, then you certainly could, as long as it's got the as long as it's an ortho photo. So in terms of the terrain here, so I'm just going to start that classification again, but I'll jump back into the other data set here. So if I go to my Mapper Plus data here, you can see that in the terrain module, I can turn on my classification, and I can turn my points off, and I can actually show you very quickly and easily how well that's done a classification of the vegetation in that environment. So you can see it was quite a dense area from a vegetation perspective. So and you can see here, if I go to the classification functionality again, then yeah, you can turn off those other points that are classified, and you can see it's got a really dense data set there. We've had another question come through about CloudStation being included in the price of the hardware. So in terms of the pricing structure of the YellowScan, or the pricing system, I suppose, of the YellowScan product offering, is that they do keep it quite modular, which allows you to have a bit more flexibility and control over the different options that you get, because not everyone wants to get a colorized point cloud, and not everyone wants to use, you know, the YellowScan terrain classification functionality, for example. So CloudStation is something that's required for the YellowScan unit, and it is something that, while it's priced separately, essentially you can kind of factor it into the overall cost. So there's a couple of different options you can use. You can get an annual license or a perpetual license. If you get the annual license, then it gives you access to all of the updates and everything that YellowScan does. So they're very proactive with their updating of the software, and we've seen, I think it's every 3 weeks or so they release a new feature or new version of the software. But yeah, they've intentionally kept it quite modular so that you do have that flexibility. Were there any questions from anyone else in the webinar at the moment? While I'm waiting for that last call there, I'll just jump back across to here, and you can see that the data has actually done the classification here. So you can see that obviously I've just used the default settings here, but it's done a very, very good job of classifying that point cloud very, very quickly. So it's very neat to be able to get that data back from the unit in a very streamlined workflow. So in terms of there's another question here from someone about the third-party software to process. So in terms of processing the LiDAR data from YellowScan, you do require, at the very least, you would require POSPAC to do your trajectory correction and Cloud Station Core to convert your data into a LAS file, etc. If you wanted to process the data inside something like Global Mapper, then you could do further processing in Global Mapper, but Global Mapper doesn't have the capability of processing the YellowScan raw data, if that makes sense. Thibaut and Teresa, is there anything in particular that you can think of that I should be relaying to our attendees here before we let them go today?
Well, there's one thing. You mentioned that Cloud Station, the new release is able to process 90 flights at a time. We actually upped that capacity to about 400.
Oh wow, that's insane.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Thibaut, would you like
yeah.
mention about the multi-flight mission? How many can they process in one project?
Well,
how many flights?
As I said, it's up to 400 flights so far.
Nice. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's a big improvement. So when we were on the YellowScan demonstration tour, I think the record previously was about 90 or 95. So to times that by 4 is a big step up. So, but I guess one of the benefits of the YellowScan software and hardware is that it is relatively efficient. I've actually noticed quite a big improvement in the latest release of Cloud Station, that it's a bit less hungry from a power perspective from my computer. So you will still need a decent processing computer, which I'm sure most people will be kind of utilizing anyway. But yeah, and it is only a PC software at the moment as well. Is that correct? That's correct, isn't it? Thibaut, there's no Linux or OS X.
Yeah, no Linux support and no Mac OS. No, for now it's only Windows.
Yeah. So we've also had a couple of questions come through from people about pricing. So in the interest of transparency, I think it's something that we prefer to have that conversation with you off the back of the call. So if because there's just so much flexibility and modularity to the different systems. So if there's anything in particular that anyone would like to know in terms of pricing, please shoot us through an email or send us a message in the chat, and we can get back to you and have a bit of a conversation about what options you want to go with, etc. But yeah, the YellowScan unit is a little bit more expensive than some of the other systems that are on the market, but it's something where if you pay peanuts, sometimes you get monkeys. So it is a little bit more expensive, like I said, but it's a very, very capable system that's far more efficient and it's very precise and very accurate.
Yeah. So yeah, Elliot. So I'm not sure if you mentioned about the for every single YellowScan LiDAR units, you can actually add on the camera with the additional camera mount to be able to fly all in one flight rather than having flight separately if anyone wants to. Yeah,
definitely. So that improvement in efficiency as well, if you are capturing concurrently, then you can spend far less time in the field capturing data and getting good quality data. I think, Thibaut, am I correct that it's actually a direct georeferencing system rather than a PPK system? Is that something that you're
well, your georeferencing is direct in the fact that you have a GNSS antenna when you collect data, but because you're processing PPK, in the end, you can consider it a PPK solution.
Okay. Yeah, so I guess having that PPK functionality means that you're not as exposed to RTK dropouts, which is obviously one of the reasons that a lot of people do prefer that PPK system. You're obviously processing the data forwards and backwards rather than just collecting the data at the time and processing it in real time via RTK, if that makes sense. So and yeah, I guess in terms of the presentation here, I guess one thing that's probably worth touching on again is the fact that the YellowScan unit is designed to be very solution agnostic. So you can, and forgive me while I just kind of go back to this. What I might do, bear with me for 1 second. There's a slide up here which just really highlights to me, the capabilities and the flexibility of the system. So, having the ability to mount your YellowScan unit on any number of platforms that you've got means that you can invest in a payload that's going to be with you for some time. We've got some clients who are still using YellowScan units that they've had for quite a while. They're still going strong, and they're potentially looking to upgrade to the latest models for the obvious improvements in capability, etc. But aircraft come and go, but the payloads is what we're seeing as being increasingly valuable, rather than the platform to carry it, if that makes sense. But so yeah, we obviously have done a bit of work with Ace Core as well. So it's something where if we are starting to see a few people looking for other alternatives to the likes of the DJI systems. But if anyone has any questions about any aircraft or anything that you've seen in the presentation today, we'd love to pick up a call with you. So please feel free to get in touch. But look, I think we should probably leave it here because I'm mindful of time. But thank you so much to everyone for joining us today. We'll shoot through a bit of an email off the back of the session today. But if anyone does have any questions or if they need anything, please don't hesitate to get in touch. But yeah, thank you all very much for joining us today.
Yep. Thanks everyone for joining. Thanks, Elliot, Paris, and Thibault.
Thanks a lot for having us.
Yes.
Thanks, gang.
Cheers.